Alright, what's going on guys? It's Ghost Terminal. I wanted to bring you another tutorial today. We're going to take a look at how to add tessellation to your material and to a mesh itself. I know there's a couple out there, but I don't think there's very many on this, so I just wanted to quickly go over that. As you can see here, I'm making a what will be a country road with tire tracks, as you can see, and then pebbles and stuff like that. And what I've done was just create a simple plane geometry, and then copied that over 3 times. And on top of that, I've created decals here, or one decal, and just copied it over, and then just tweaked it, the width and everything, to match up perfectly with my geometry to drive the tracks here, as you can see, the tire tracks and whatnot. So this is just a well-worn and used dirt road. I got an inspiration from being out in the country and just took a picture of just a nice overgrown area with a dilapidated barn and stuff, and just a well-used gravel road, and so that's where I got this inspiration. And so I started to create the scene, and this is the first piece of geometry for that scene that I started to work on. Yeah, we'll just get right into it. I don't want to take too much time because I can ramble on forever, and I'll try not to do that, but I've got a lot to cover, I guess. Now this is assuming you guys know how to make materials, so I don't want to actually go over how to make a material, but I will go in depth of how to add tessellation to that material. And then on top of that, I'll kind of quickly go over this decal. Now I'm actually going to go back and change a few things up before I actually post all this, and I will post all this. I'll post the mesh and then the materials and everything, so you guys can just take it and study it that way if you want, or you can follow along yourselves once I go into this. But yeah, so I'll try not to go into too much detail on how to create a decal or anything, because I actually have video on that, and you guys are more than welcome to watch that, or there's like probably 1,000 of them on YouTube here to create decals. But yeah, all right, let's move on and get into it. So I've just created a folder in my content browser. I called it Dirt Road, and then I started to add everything to that folder just to keep everything nice and organized. So I brought in 2 different texture sets here. One is the pebbles themselves, and then the other is this sand soil type of texture. And then I created an alpha mask out of the material that I used to create the decal itself, which is the tire tracks, just so that way, and I'll show you guys real quickly. If I take that off, you can see there it is. This definitely needs to be darkened, and the color needs to be tweaked to match the decal. What I'm thinking I'm going to do, instead of having this decal, which will just make things a little bit easier, is I'm going to replace this texture set with the decal texture set, and that way this is just in the mesh itself, and it'll also use a height map and everything, and it'll actually drive the grooves from the tires and everything a bit better into the mesh, and just overall it'll look even better. But for right now, this is the way I did it. There's nothing wrong with this. The other way is just a bit easier. I guess I can just go back like that. So yeah, let's jump into this. So as I said, I've created this folder. I started to import everything. This is just a simple piece of geometry. It's just a square, as you can tell. Here in Maya, I just created a plane. It follows the same units as Unreal, which is centimeters. So it's 256 by 256, and then I subdivided it 64 times width and height. And then I just UV mapped that with a planar map from Y and exported that to Unreal. So from there, I've imported my texture sets. One is for the pebbles, then one is for the sand and the sand soil type of material, as you can see here. Then created a alpha mask, and that just drives where each texture lives on the mesh itself. It follows that path, and I wanted to use the tire tracks just so everything matched up perfectly. So let's get into that real quick. I've created the materials here. So here's the pebble material. I'm going to rename this to just dirt road material because it's actually two different texture sets mixed together to make this material instead of just being pebbles. I was just testing, when I first created this, I was just testing the pebbles to see if everything lined up and was seamless or not, and blah blah blah, so on and so forth. But anyways, you want to create this, we'll come in here, and I think I mentioned this before, this is assuming you guys know how to create materials, so I'm not going to go into that, but I'll show you. Just to keep everything nice and clean, I commented everything out. This is your albedo or diffuse, and from this lerp you're going to want to follow this exactly if you're using two different textures and mixing those together. And as you can see, there's the alpha mask, here's the two textures, then I've followed this. We've got the roughness and the normals themselves, and then the AOs. And here's where the tessellation comes in, and then the displacement tessellation. So what you want to do is you've got your material, you've got all these things set up. Now you want to add tessellation. So right click off of anything, make sure you just got the default details panel up, go down, switch on tessellation. You can either pick flat or PN triangles, and then go ahead and make sure that you select crack free displacement. Just make sure you select that on, and then that will activate world position offset, world displacement, and tessellation multiplier. And then from there you'll just set up a parameter. You'll just click, hold one constant and convert that over to your test amount. And so then you'll hook that up into tessellation multiplier, and we'll set this up in the material instance, so you don't have to set the default unless you want it to like default to 1 or something like that, but you don't have to. We can change all that in the actual instance, and I'll get to that here in a moment. So that takes care of the tessellation amount for the multiplier. And then we've got the displacement or the height map or displacement map to actually take care of the 3D effect that you get. And so what you're going to need here is the vertex normal world space node, and you just right click and search for that. You can hit WS and then it'll show up here, or at the very bottom, just click on that, it'll bring it in. You'll need one of those, and then you'll need a couple of multiplies, and then you'll need another constant here. Now, because I'm lerping two textures together and I'm following the exact same way I've set up all these other lerps, this is what you'll need to do for each texture. You'll have to do this for each texture for it to work correctly. But what you want to do is, you basically, I guess if you could think about it like this, you're multiplying this texture and getting it to look like it's stacking on itself, so that way it pushes up into the world space, which is why we got this vertex normal world space. And so it gives it that 3D effect, that the pebbles are actually 3D and not just flat. And it works even, obviously, it gives it a better effect than just the normal map itself. So what I've done here was create the pebbles displacement amount parameter. Then I've done one for the sand displacement amount for the sand texture. So you've got your height maps or displacement maps, whatever you want to call them, doesn't matter. And then you're multiplying that texture to the vertex normal world space. Then I've hooked that up into the lerp. Now if you're not using this lerp, you're not you're not mixing two materials together, then obviously you would just come right out of this multiply here, say you're just using this, and then hook that into world displacement. And that's it, guys. That's how you add tessellation to your material. And so from there, what you want to do is save that out. We'll just quickly apply this and then hit save. All right, we'll get out of that. And then just right click, create a material instance. And now, if you don't know, you'll want to click and drag this onto your mesh, not the material, but the actual instance. And then we'll just open up the instance here. And now you can see that we can control the amount of displacement that the pebbles have and the sand material, whatever the materials that you're using. For this, it would be the sand soil material and then the rocks itself. So here's the pebbles. Now obviously you want the pebbles and stuff to stand out more than the sand. So that's why they're offset from each other. But you could take this up to whatever, get really crazy with it. But 4 seems the best, I think, for me at least, or for this texture and material. So it doesn't need to be too crazy, and plus it'll look more, depth than this on the actual mesh itself, because it's high poly, has a lot of vertices to it. So but that's it, guys. It's where you control it. Your test amount, you can put whatever. You don't want to get too crazy, but I like just to follow the rule of 2. So I've got 24 here for the test amount itself for the triangles. And from there, you just save that, and obviously you would see this in real time on your mesh itself. So if I went crazy with it, you can see, you can tweak this to a little bit or a lot, and you can do some really cool stuff with this. But we'll just set it back to 4. But just save that when you tweak that and get it to the way you like, and that's it, guys. That's how you do that. And you can see it's working. It'll work best the higher the, you don't have to go crazy, but the higher the poly, or the mesh, the higher the poly count or the vertices on the mesh itself, the better the results of this. If it's too low, then it'll just be huge triangles, and just doesn't look right. I can actually show you real quick with a plane. So this is just 4 vertices here, and then if I add this, you'll see what happens. So everything's just uneven. It doesn't actually push out the individual pebbles themselves or that look. It just pushes out a little bit here and there, so it almost looks like just big bumps in the road, so it doesn't look right. So everything still looks flat. So that's why you're going to use a high poly mesh. Alright, and just as I said, as an added bonus, I'll show you guys that decal that I made. So I just added another folder for the tire tracks decal, and then I made the material. I just dragged in the textures for that, and then added the decal. And as I said previously, if you don't know how to make a decal, I actually have a tutorial on this, and you can, it follows the same thing. It's actually the one I did for water, which is actually in this test level that I'm using. But you can go and watch that, and then you can see it here. But you can use that to create this if you want. I don't really want to spend too much time going over how to create this. It's not really hard. You just need to change the material domain to a deferred decal, in the blend mode to translucent, and that'll take care of that. So as you can see, for this one, and to really get the detail and to get a better color for that dirt track, you know, the grooves and the tire grooves and everything, and that color for that dirt, I wanted to tweak the color a bit, darken it, and then I times it by itself to get really a good amount of that detail back after changing its color. And another thing I would do, and I'm actually going to do to really help drive the depth a bit better, is to strengthen the normal map here. But that's it. I've just got the roughness map, the normal map, and then the albedo map. And I'll comment everything out here too, just to make it a little bit cleaner and nicer to look at. But that's it, guys. That's what I've done here to create this nice little country road effect with the tire tracks here. Just go into immersive mode and then hit play. And over here, this is where I showed you how to make the decal. This is just obviously a little test level for these tutorials and whatnot, but yeah, you can go check that out if you guys want to learn how to make this water decal. I'll show you guys in that video. But anyways, we'll move on. So here you can see everything looks like it's actually now sticking up, like it's actual gravel rocks in 3D space, which looks really, really nice. Yep, but it's that simple, guys. It's pretty actually, it's just really actually an easy tutorial. It's really not hard to follow. It's something simple you can add. I wouldn't go crazy with it because it takes, you know, tessellation helps keep the cost of memory or VRAM down, but it's not VRAM, just RAM or whatever, but and the CPU performance down, but it puts more stress on the GPU itself. But yeah, fairly simple, guys. Looks really good. Makes everything, you know, just pop a whole lot more. Gives you a more realistic look to 3D textures or 2D textures, so that way you actually get the 3D look. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Try not to ramble on too long, and I know I'm kind of twitchy. I like to move around the camera a lot, and you know, a little bit too much, but that's just kind of how I am in these tutorials. But anyways, guys, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope this, you know, helps you guys. I think I said previously, I'll have all this stuff up for you guys to download. If you just want to download it and study it that way, by all means, I'll put this up in my Google Drive for you guys to enjoy. But thanks, guys. Thanks for making it through the video and listening to me ramble on. Until next time, guys. Peace.